I couldn't find my regular yellow lens ones. These are a little bit more orangey, but they'll do the trick. So today I'm going to talk about earning things instead of acquiring things or being given things or getting things, but earning them and the difference in it and how the value on that is kind of different. So I'm I've been inconsistent with my writing, which is probably out of all the things that I'm inconsistent with, that's probably the number one thing that's been inconsistent. Writing and finishing the book more so than going for a few days and tipping off with it and getting lost in it again. So I've decided to write a couple of hours a day just to kind of make up for lost ground and see how that goes. Today I was writing about cycling and then realizing that everything that I got in it, the lessons that I got in cycling was I had to earn every single thing that I got. And that went from day one. So in life lessons, riding a bike, racing bikes was probably the biggest one I ever got. Kind of really formed me from childhood or boyhood to kind of manhood, just because of the complex things that go on in it. On the outside, it just looks like a guy riding a bike, but on the inside, there's a lot more nuances to it. So initially, I had to buy a bike. I mean, that was the first thing I did. John Sheen lived next door, and I had a racer, as I used to call it, like a 10-speed racer that I'd saved up and bought across the road. And I thought that was good enough for racing because it was a racer. But it's the difference between like a Fiat Punto and a Formula One car. They're not the same thing. It's a car, but it's not the same thing. So I had to buy a racing bike for my first bike when I was 15. And at the time I was working, so I was making £40 a week. And I used to give my mother half, so that was I had 20 quid a week. And then I got stopped PRSI, which is like insurance money or some shit. And so I got 37, which meant I got 17. My ma got 20. So it's 17 quid a week. John was great because he helped me out. And we got this second-hand frame. And it was like a wine colour. I didn't even have a name on it. It was just some old... They used to have these bikes called hackers. Whereas when you got good, you had a race bike for the race season, and then you had a hacker for the winter that you didn't want to get trashed in the shitty conditions of the roads in the winter. So it was just a hacker with mud guards that you just got the miles in on. I think it was one of those. And then I got a bunch of components. And then at the time, you didn't buy wheels. You bought the components of the wheels. You bought the rims, the hubs, and the spokes. And then you brought them to... There was two wheel builders, and you tried to get the best guy. And it took 6 weeks to get your wheels back. So that was the initial learning, was what a bike was. And then actually putting it together. So learning to build it, putting in the headset, putting in the cranks, putting the brakes on. And John was brilliant like that. So I was starting to get this education on how to put a bike together and how to... Whereas now you just go into a shop and you buy the bike and it's done. And when there's something wrong with it, you just give it back to the bike shop. Whereas then I learned how to build a bike and how to dismantle a bike. And then every Sunday there was a race. So I learned about triggers and how you switch on and how you get ready for competition. And so the day before, you'd hand wash your bike, because if there's anything loose on a bike, if you don't hand wash it, you're not going to feel it, like a spoke that's gone loose, or something your brakes are slightly off, that's going to fall apart on race day. So you have it already set up. Then I would have to find a lift to the race. When I was a junior, no, schoolboy, so I would have been under 16. Mick Lawless used to look after the Irish Road Club juniors and schoolboys, and he'd ring Mick. He was up in Tallow, I was in Crumlin, and Mick would tell you whether there was a place left in his high ace van or not. And the high ace vans then were probably half the size of the high ace vans now. If you think of like minis, the mini car now compared to the original mini, it's not the same fucking thing. It's much bigger. So the cars then were kind of smaller, but he would fit 8 lads and 8 bikes into this van. and there'd be three guys in the front seat and Mick, and they were preference to how good you were. There was a pecking order. So when you started off, we'd get to Mick's house right up from where you were from, meet at Mick's, take the front wheel off the bike, put the bikes in the back of the van, put the wheels in. Top three lads would sit in the front, and the rest of us would be in the back, and you try and make a little seat in this kind of like open van in the back. And every now and then when he slammed on the brakes, you'd have a bike or bits of pieces falling on you. And that's how you kind of like you kind of earned your way up. And then in cycling there was categories of there's a pecking order. There was a how do I put this? There's a hierarchy. There's you start off at the bottom, so nobody knows who you are, and it's categorized. They're called Freds. As Freds, there's kind of like rulers, which is kind of like hard riders. There's demigods and there's gods. So you start off as this like Fred, and a Fred kind of like knows nothing. Nobody knows who he is. He's probably got a goofy style on the bike. He probably wasn't as lucky as I was to meet someone like John Sheen that, you know, put me on the right track, showed me how to get the bike properly prepped for me, how to get the position right, how to wear my gear right, how to, you know, do all the rigmarole that doesn't set you apart from everybody else. They probably just kind of got into it on their own, and their socks were too long, or their legs weren't shaved, or they wore underpants underneath their cycling shorts, and all these little giveaways. So you just be afraid. So you kind of also ran and made up the numbers of the races, because in the races there's probably only 10 guys that can win, really, you know. And you'd have maybe anything from, in the juniors and that, it would be like 100 guys in a bike race. And the best place to be is up the front. But you can't have 100 guys up the front, right? And the reason why it's better to be up the front, or the front third of the race, is because there's going to be crashes eventually. Someone's going to run into the arse of somebody else and run into the back wheel, and there's going to be pile-ups. If you're in the back, you're going to be in every pile-up. If you're in the front, you're not. Plus, you can see when the moves go. Plus, there's no gaps opening up that you have to close. It's just much more energy efficient and much more in the way of, if you ever want a chance of winning a bike race, you need to know what's going on. You need to know when the climbs are coming. You need to know what the road looks like. I mean, now you've got computers on your bike and it tells you the route. But then it was just kind of like, you need to pay attention to what's coming up ahead. So what would happen is, you just be afraid. You'd start off down the back. You try and work your way up, and you know, people would say coming through, but no one would get out of the way if you were afraid. They'd know your they wouldn't know your voice. That's the thing. So no one's gonna let you get up their inside or on the other side, and they're all fairly packed together. So how you kind of got out of this was, they had these things called classics. There was generally one every month minimum, but we might get two in a month, where there'll be every year there'll be a race in a particular place. Same time every year, and it'd be like a memorial kind of race where you'd win a cup, your name would go on it, and then you give it back the next year. They were classics. They were hard man classics, and there was always a circuit, say like a 15k circuit, 10k circuit, 20k circuit, and you do laps. Always a hard climbing, always a tricky descent, always a bit of flat. And what would happen is, as the race goes on, you're doing laps. So it's if the race not going your way, or you get left behind, it's easy to kind of pack, get in the van, get changed, wait for it to all be finished, and, you know, everyone's finished, and get in the van and go home again. But if you hung on in there, you know, on those wet, cold, miserable fucking March days where you can't feel your fucking hands to pull the brakes or change the gears, and you hung on in, and you finished top 10, you know, you're on the sheet, you know, 8, you know, who's this guy? Finished 8 in this classic. And then you do it again the next month, and again, and all of a sudden you just become like, oh, how's it going? All right, Colin. And someone knows your name, and when you're coming through, they go, oh, that's, yeah, he must be getting involved in the race. And all of a sudden you're in that little front bit. And then there'd be a stage race, which would be races that were more than one day, and each club would have a team of, say, 4 or 5, and they'd have to pick out, like, say, 15, 20 people. So when you started getting results, then your name was getting mentioned in maybe we put him on the team, and then you're on the team, And then you started doing well for yourself, and then you start getting noticed, and all of a sudden you're up there, and you're edging towards that demigod status, Or Spratty, Stephen Spratt would say to you, Bubba, you were riding like a god today. And Spratty was this kind of like god that everyone looked up to, and if he spoke to you even, you felt privileged, He was here last year, and we went for a bike ride. It was just brilliant. He was here, we went there for dinner. Hadn't seen him in so long. He was off in Thailand. He is off in Thailand, never going home. And just one of those characters. And it was just like, just writing all the journeys that I had in with the bike. It got me, Jesus, got me some mad places. Got me to Guadeloupe. Got me living in a place where no one spoke English. Getting a letter once every month. No internet. Flying to Africa on a £99 return holiday to the Gambia, making our own way to Dakar in Senegal. Getting there and forgetting the address. Jules didn't bring the address where we were staying, and ended up homeless on the street and sleeping in a plastic bag. But I earned everything I ever got out of it, and on the outside it looks like it's a guy riding a bike, but the reality was it really gave me an insight into if you do the work, if you do the work and you're consistent and you show up, that when the smoke clears and you're still standing there, I might pick him, It might be, who's that guy? He's been around for a bit. And if everything was given to me, say for instance, like I'd started racing and my dad was rich and he gave me this fucking the best bike ever. And, when I crashed, I was worried about ripping my clothing, not about wrecking myself. That was, because it cost me so much to buy a pair of fucking shorts that if I fell, that I would rip my shorts, but my skin would heal. Like, I've chunks out of me. But I wasn't worried about anything. I was worried about, like, fuck, how am I going to replace the front brake, or how am I going to get a new spoke for the, just broke kid trying to make your way through it. But it happened, and it made it happen, and you earned everything you ever had. And the value in really earning something and working for something is much more than just getting it for free or getting it cheap or someone buying it for you. Unless it's someone, like fucking, you've all got these presents from people that you love that they know you're into that kind of shit. But generally, people giving you stuff, or people, making it easy for you. And even though you kind of want people, that's the problem with kids, isn't it? It's kind of like, you want to spoil them. I want them to have everything that I didn't have, but you're kind of doing them a what's the word? I can't think of the word. It's where you're not letting them realise the value of what they're actually doing, and letting them fail and letting them fall down and letting them kind of get a Saturday job, or let them do something in order to earn it, in order to kind of pay for stuff, in order to kind of realise that I had to work that amount in order to get it in my life. Whereas when it's just given to you and you broke it, it's just like easy come, easy go. So that's what I was. I tell you one thing about the book is, even if I don't ever publish it, which I will, the lessons that I'm learning now, writing about what I did then, are fantastic. And I didn't really see them as lessons then. I just saw them as like shit times and just getting on with it and figuring it out. Like, like homeless in Africa, sleeping in the plastic bag my boy came in. And then when I woke up, some guy was asking me for money. I was like, fuck dude, I don't even have a bed to stay in. But at the time it was just a fucking pain in the ass. But now I realise the comfort of like a bed, or a shelter, having enough money in my pocket to not get to the checkout and ask, can I put that back please? Or stroke and stuff because I've got no money to eat. Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just earning things rather than gathering things with no value and putting a value on stuff that you've earned and realize what it gives you, you know? Because you can't put a price on a lot of things, you know? You can have anything that you want, but you can't have everything that you want. So, update on shit. Andy Ryan's coming Wednesday. This is his 10th year. I think we were talking the other day, and he was saying that I think there was 8 or 9 of them came the first year. And he hasn't been for 3 years now with the whole fucking COVID bullshit. But I'll probably get flagged for that now. But he's got 60, I think there's 65 guys coming. Don't know where I'm going to put them all. But we'll definitely get the photograph with the white geese, the blue geese, and the black geese down by the pool again. I've got Seymour Pecker. That is his actual real name. Coming from Germany, and he's going to work as an intern in the gym. And he's a great filmmaker, great photographer. So I'm going to get him to start shooting some shit with me in it instead of me being behind the camera shooting everybody else. And the gym's going nice. I'm enjoying. I was trying to step away from it. I was trying to get away from it, and just can't run away from yourself, can you? It just follows you. So I ended up. That's really what I do, isn't it? I was just like, I need to do something else. And I was like, fucking, there's nothing else to do. It's who I am now at this stage. So I'll continue on teaching and just get a new love for it. I went back to Ireland and I did Olympic lifting coaching course, and I've qualified, which is great. So certified Olympic lifting coach. Not that I know much about Olympic lifting or I'm a good Olympic lifter, but I do know how to instruct people. I do know how to coach because I worked it out the other day. I've done 12,000 hours on this mat here. That's without all the hours I did before I ever came here. So finding the words or the language or the instruction to show somebody how to do stuff, and then with the guys from Weightlift Ireland, I wanted to see how they were doing it, their systems, their methods, their teaching methods, their kind of like what they were looking at, and I found it to be exceptional. I really liked it. There was a couple of things that I didn't like on the first weekend that I was going to mention, but it all tied together in the end, if you know what I mean. The method they had of teaching would have been different to the way I teach. Their method would be, okay, I want to do clean and jerk. What do we do first? So they're asking you, I don't know, I'm fucking day one beginner. I'm the least qualified guy in the room. Show me first. Like if, say for instance, if I was teaching, like today we're doing single X jiu-jitsu, right? So from the bottom, getting into single X. So I break it down into 5 moves. We do the first 1, 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then do all 5, and then you repeat. And that's the way I teach martial arts. Whereas they were teaching it, and it's a different system and it's different ways of teaching, which was great. Which was ask people to try and figure it out themselves. The disadvantage I find of that is that I don't want to make a show of myself in front of the people in the room, especially if they're looking towards me. It's like being at front row in a comedy show where you're thinking like, fuck, I hope this guy doesn't see me and start taking a piss. I don't know what to do. But I understand the method now, and I thought at the start I was kind of like a little bit, why don't you just show me first and then ask me? But I kind of get it. It's a nice little add-on, and I added it in a little bit today. And it's just getting the being able to see what you're looking at, which was great because I saw a lot of other things that I hadn't seen before. The invisible stuff, I'd seen it, but I didn't recognize it. So I recognized the cues, the little things. Not talking too much, letting people, because a lot of feeling goes on. That's what they say. A lot of them don't use mirrors because you don't want to look in the mirror and distract yourself. You kind of just want to do the lift, feel the lift. It's like today I was doing jiu-jitsu, and everyone could do the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, but a lot of them lost it on the transition between the 3 and the 4. But it's very hard to explain what that is. How do we get from 3 to 4? That just comes with feeling it and doing it and your body kind of reacting to it. Same with the lift. there's a kind of first pull and there's a second pull and a third pull. But in between those things, there's a lot of other shit going on that you got to just feel rather than look in the mirror. Anyway, it was great. Enjoyed it, and I'm glad I did it. It took a bit of effort, but I got there in the end. It was 2 weekends and a gap in between, and then teaching somebody and putting in a bit of work. But in that process, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about coaching. I learned a lot about Olympic lifting. But I've also, I've got a bit of a goo on me again for just, martial arts. A lot of it was down to being injured, chronic pain, and feeling sorry for myself. That's pretty much background noise now. I was listening to a guy about tinnitus yesterday. Save me waffling on here. And he was saying that everybody's a doctor. He was saying like everybody's got tinnitus. It's just that you don't hear it. It's kind of like you never go somewhere where it's fucking so silent it's deafening. Well, the same with a lot of things. It's only when you take away all the other noise, you can hear the noise. But when you concentrate on that, it's all you can hear, And it was kind of interesting. Don't know what my point was in that, but there you go. It's late. Got a new hat. Don't know if you like it or not. Anyway, it's a fucking. I like it. I'm going big with the hats. I've gone off the smaller hats, like the. I don't know if my head's got fucking bigger as I've got older. I don't know. Maybe it has. It hasn't. It's the same size hat. So, but I feel like it's got chunkier or something. But I feel like the pork pie is a younger man's hat. And I think this is more like a fucking dapper hat, So I'm gonna go for the dapper look a little bit more than the kind of like ska rude boy skinhead look. I'll also mix that in, but this is just, it's an entrance hat. I like your hat. It's one of those things. I was talking to Ivan yesterday about like to start exploring your dapperness, like especially with he's a younger guy. Start with something small. Start with like socks, eyewear, or hats. I started with hats years and years ago. To the fact where I used to, Ets used to run the hat shop in before the Rabbit had it in George Street Arcade, and people would go in there that knew me and they'd say, "What colour does Colin not have this hat in?" And I'd buy it for a present. Like Max used to do that, and it was just known for wearing hats. I always wore hats. But someone that wants to explore a little bit of a conversational piece would be wacky socks. Start with a pair. Either people are gonna like them or not like them. Start the conversation. Start a conversation, have a little laugh, interact a little bit more with the general public, learn a bit, don't learn a bit. There you go. That's my piece for today. Anyway, Sláinte, probably the longest one so far, meant to be the shortest one. When Andy comes over, I'll bang out some vlogs and some films on the Shinobi page. And if I learn any lessons, which I'm probably always going to do with Andy, I'll bang them on this. I'll give you a good lesson about Andy Ryan. He would have been around at the start. And I remember when I started jiu-jitsu first, my ears started hurting me and they were getting cauliflowered. And I decided to get ear protectors. And the only way to get them was in a martial art magazine I sent off for them. Wrote, send off your money in a fucking postal order. And I got these, put them on. It's like fucking great. I'm not going to have cauliflower ears. First person I rolled was Andy Ryan. Starts rolling and he gets the piece that's over your head to hold him, and he just shoves it down over my eyes. I couldn't see anything. Strangles me. I never wore them again. Didn't get cauliflower ears either. Thanks, Andy. So it'll be a bit more of that now the weekend. So looking forward to it. So till the next one, we are all one. Hare Krishna.